Buckle up, folks. As passengers, we've all experienced a smooth flight or two. But have you ever wondered what's happening behind the scenes? The pilots and crew are working tirelessly to ensure our safety, even when things get wild. Today, we're taking a thrilling ride through 15 jaw-dropping close calls in aviation history. Let's dive right in, starting with number 15, Ural Airlines Flight 178. You might have heard of this one. Birds getting sucked into an engine is a nightmare scenario for pilots, and unfortunately, it happens more often than you'd think. In 2019, Ural Airlines Flight 178 took off from Moscow's Domodedovo Airport bound for Ukraine. But its journey was short-lived. Just a few minutes in, disaster almost struck when birds flew straight into its engines during takeoff. The drama unfolds. Here's what happened next. In a freak incident, Ural Airlines Flight 178 found itself with two engines crippled by a flock of birds. Yep, you read that right, birds. With 233 lives on board, the situation was critical. The plane started to plummet towards the ground, and an emergency landing was the only option. But where could they put this massive machine down safely? Luckily, the pilots guided the plane into a nearby cornfield just over a mile from the airport. It wasn't exactly a soft landing, more like a controlled crash. Miraculously, 50 passengers received immediate medical attention in the field, and another 29 were rushed to hospital. We'll keep counting down these close calls. Stay tuned for what's next. What an incredible survival story. After that harrowing incident, we're thrilled to report that all 233 passengers on board Ural Airlines Flight 178 made it out alive. Though the plane itself was beyond repair, every single person was rescued. Talk about a miracle. By the way, this event has earned the title Miracle on the Neva, and its heroism will never be forgotten. But we're not done yet. Let's take a trip down memory lane to 1963 and explore another jaw-dropping story of survival. On an ill-fated flight from Moscow, a Tupolev Tu-124 aircraft, famously known as the Squeeze Tu-104, found itself in a dire situation when it had to make an emergency landing. But not on solid ground. The plan was to put down in the icy Neva River, and that's exactly what happened. Let's dive into that gripping story from 1963. So, Tupolev Tu-124 Squeeze Tu-104 took off from a Moscow airport, but things took a turn for the worse fast. The aircraft hit some major technical issues, and its landing gear got stuck in limbo, halfway between up and down, refusing to fully retract. With no choice but to act swiftly, the pilots radioed back to base, pleading to return to Moscow. But their plea was denied due to a thick blanket of fog rolling into town. As time ticked by, the crew found themselves with little room for error. The situation was becoming increasingly desperate. So, in an instant, they made the brave call that would change everything, ditching into the icy waters of the Neva River. But how did they manage it? Would anyone make it out alive? Stay tuned to find out. Alright, so what did our crew do next? They decided to give runway landing a shot, aiming for an unpaved road at a nearby airport. But just like before, those pesky technical issues kept coming back. And this time they took out the plane's gauges entirely. The pilots knew they had to dump as much fuel as possible. Pronto, the less weight, the better. But this move seriously limited their flying time. You can only imagine how terrifying that must have been for everyone on board. Finally, when the engines conked out, they headed straight for the icy Neva River and managed a rough but successful landing. It was a crazy rescue mission, and with tugboats helping them, the plane made it back to shore in one piece. Talk about a miracle. This incredible story went down in history as the Miracle on the Neva. You won't believe what happened next. It was a routine morning flight from Toronto to San Francisco for Air Canada Flight 750. 9, but things took a wild turn 2 hours before landing. The crew had already braved through some intense thunderstorms mid-flight, but now they were dealing with something else. They were both feeling pretty unwell. Meanwhile, air traffic control in San Francisco was sending them an urgent warning. The original runway for their arrival was closed for renovations, and visibility was going to be super low due to limited lighting. But, as it turned out, the pilots didn't quite catch on to this critical info. They were too busy dealing with their own health issues. Can you guess what happened when they went in for landing? It was an extremely close call that will leave you speechless. Buckle up, folks. You're about to hear one of the scariest near misses in aviation history. On a fateful day in 2017, Air Canada Flight 759 was getting ready to land at San Francisco Airport. But things took a drastic turn when the pilots failed to spot an Airbus A340 already on the tarmac. They were just 14 feet away from disaster. It's a miracle the crew was able to yank the plane up in the nick of time and make a safe landing. The flight number, never used again, ever. Stay tuned for what's next. It's going to be another jaw-dropping aviation close call. Get ready for a heart-stopping tale. On that fateful day in 2001, two massive airliners, Japan Airlines Boeing 747 and DC-10, were on a collision course over Japanese skies. The 747 was chock full of over 400 passengers headed to Okinawa from Tokyo. Meanwhile, the DC-10 was flying in from South Korea, destined for Tokyo. Air traffic control had alerted both pilots that their paths would soon cross, but here's where things went horribly wrong. These planes were supposed to be a whopping 2,000 feet apart, but due to a critical mistake by an inexperienced air traffic controller, disaster almost struck. Let's find out what happened next and how they managed to avoid the unthinkable. Buckle up, because we've got a nail-biting escape story for you. So, things took a chaotic turn when that air traffic control trainee made his rookie mistake. Crucial messages, including the DC-10's urgent change of course, went unnoticed. As supervisors jumped in to try and correct the situation, things only got more confusing. They were trying to reach out to the wrong flight numbers. The clock was ticking. Disaster loomed large over Tokyo skies. But then our hero emerged, the sharp-eyed captain of the Boeing 747. In a heart-stopping, last-second move, he dove downwards, shaving off just 35 feet from a deadly collision with the DC-10. Miraculously, all on board both planes made it out alive. Let's dive into another heart-stopping aviation tale. Number 11, the miracle on the Hudson. You might know this story like the back of your hand, but it's so incredible that it even became a Hollywood flick. January 15, 2009 started as an ordinary day for U.S. Airways Flight 1549, taking off from New York's LaGuardia Airport bound for Charlotte, North Carolina. Little did they know, their journey was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would make history and leave everyone on the edge of their seats. Get ready for an awe-inspiring rescue story. U.S. Airways Flight 1549 took off from LaGuardia Airport on that fateful day, but their journey hit a major snag just minutes later. A flock of geese got sucked into both engines, leaving the pilots with a nightmare scenario: no power in mid-air. Air traffic control told Captain Sullenberger to head back to LaGuardia for an emergency landing, but he knew time was running out. His next best bet was to make for Newark Airport in New Jersey, but even that seemed like a long shot. With seconds to spare, Sullenberger made the split-second decision to ditch the plane into the icy waters of the Hudson River, and it's this moment that will leave you speechless. Let's dive into another nail-biting story. We're jumping forward in time now to April 2018, when Southwest Airlines Flight 1380 took off from LaGuardia Airport bound for Dallas. But disaster struck just minutes later. A faulty engine design led to a catastrophic failure. causing the plane to shake violently and one of its engines to explode mid-air. The blast blew out a window, putting passenger Jennifer Riordan in critical danger. She was sucked partially outside the aircraft before other passengers bravely pulled her back in. With the plane plummeting towards certain doom, Captain Tammy Jo Schultz sprang into action, expertly maneuvering the plane for an emergency landing at Philadelphia International Airport. It was a harrowing ordeal that would change many lives forever. Buckle up, folks. Southwest Airlines Flight 1380's journey from LaGuardia to Dallas turned into a heart-stopping horror story in an instant. As the plane took off, its engine with a suspect fan blade design suddenly gave way, and a critical piece snapped loose during the initial climb. The rogue fragment ripped through the aircraft, shattering a cabin window and causing oxygen to rush out. It was every passenger's worst nightmare. With the engine disintegrating right before their eyes, those in window seats were especially at risk, and the pilots had to act fast. They swiftly diverted the plane to Philadelphia International Airport, but the damage was already done, a terrifying ordeal that would leave everyone on board shaken for life. Get ready to feel the tension. We've got another thrilling tale. But this one's not about an engine failure or fire, it's about a close call that will give you goosebumps. Just 2 minutes prior, Qantas Flight F-12 had taken off from Los Angeles International Airport, heading down under towards Melbourne. As it flew over the Pacific Ocean, it left behind a massive turbulence wake-go, and this is where things get intense. Coming hot on F-12's heels was another Qantas A380, bound for Melbourne as well. But its crew had no idea about the turbulent path laid out by their predecessors. Flying just 1,000 feet below, the unsuspecting passengers were in for a stomach-dropping ride and it only lasted around 10 heart-stopping seconds. But what an eternity! You won't believe what happened next. As our A380 took that massive turbulence head-on, the pilot made a split-second decision to put the plane into an unexpected nosedive. Wow! Yes, you heard that right, a controlled dive for 10 intense seconds. The screams and gasps on board were understandable, but thanks to her quick thinking, everyone remained safe. It's incredible to think about how close they came to disaster, yet the plane touched down at its destination without a single scratch. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on more jaw-dropping aviation stories. Let's dive into number 8, a dramatic incident that unfolded in mid-air. United Flight 328 was cruising over Colorado when disaster struck. Its engine began malfunctioning, spewing out flames and debris as the cowling ripped off. Passengers snapped harrowing videos of the chaos, capturing every heart-stopping moment. Miraculously, the crew managed to safely guide the plane back to Earth for an emergency landing. But the real shock came when people on the ground realized they were staring at a blazing engine part hurtling towards them. Get ready for a jaw-dropping close call. A Colorado homeowner had a heart-stopping morning when he thought his yard was under attack. But it wasn't a burglar or a wild animal. It was a massive piece of metal debris from United Flight 328's engine. Can you imagine if his son hadn't left just minutes earlier? The entire terrifying episode played out in the skies above for 30-40 hair-raising minutes. But here's the incredible part. Despite all the drama, the plane landed safely at a nearby airport and every single passenger walked away unscathed. Talk about a miracle. You won't believe what happened on Flight 611 in 2018. This Boeing 737-800 was taking off from Dubai International Airport when it crashed into a localizer antenna and a wall. Talk about a rough start. But here's where things get truly mind-boggling. The pilots apparently didn't even realize they'd been in an accident. Meanwhile, the 200 love passengers on board were likely white-knuckling their seats, but somehow, the plane managed to stay aloft and cruise at a steady altitude for a whopping 3 hours before making an emergency landing. What would you have done if you were on that flight? The plot thickens. So, after hitting those obstacles during takeoff, Flight 611 kept on flying for 3 hours, totally unaware of the damage it had sustained. It wasn't until air traffic control broke the news to the pilots that they were finally alerted and made an emergency landing in Mumbai. The pilot's suspension tells us there's more to this story, and we're left wondering, how did they not notice something was off? Stay tuned for the next mind-blowing close call. It's a jetpack incident at LAX that will leave you speechless. Buckle up for this crazy tale. As American Airlines Flight 903 took off from LAX, the pilot's eyes widened in shock. He was staring straight at a guy rocking a jetpack, cruising alongside his plane at just 300 yards away. The FBI launched an intense investigation to get to the bottom of this aerial mystery. Now, we know that jetpacks do exist, but using one near commercial air traffic. That's a major no-fly zone, literally. So did they ever find out who was behind this daring stunt, or what kind of jetpack made it possible? You'll have to stick around for the next mind-blowing update. Speculation is rife. Could the jetpack man have been a sneaky drone blending in with the horizon? Theories are swirling. Let's take a deep dive into another aviation oddity. Meet the BEHHCRAFT Super KIG, a plane that was supposed to be the State Department's pride and joy. But as we've learned from our previous list, anything can happen when it comes to flying, and this tale is no exception. What exactly went awry for this aircraft? Stay tuned to find out if the truth takes flight or crashes and burns. Buckle up as we relive the action-packed landing of the BEHCRAFT Super KIG. Just as this small plane was prepping to touch down safely, disaster struck. The landing gear suddenly gave out. The pilot had already alerted air traffic control and rescue teams were standing by. But now it was time for a white-knuckle ride. As the plane made its way onto the runway, things only got hairier. The landing gear buckled under the impact, and this brave bird ended up doing an uninvited belly flop down the runway. We're holding our breath. Will it make it through this bumpy touchdown? Get ready for a real-life rescue story. We've got an exciting one from Air New Guinea's 730-7800, registration number 4. On a mission from Papua New Guinea to Micronesia in September 2018, this crew was dealing with some serious turbulence, literally and figuratively. But it wasn't until they hit a massive thunderstorm during their final approach that things took a turn for the worse. Visibility went from clear to zero, making every second count for the pilots as they worked to land safely amidst the chaos. Let's see how this intense weather challenge played out. Buckle up, folks. We've got another close call that'll leave you breathless. On board Shenzhen Airlines Flight 9247, things took a drastic turn when the plane missed the Benjiwa Airport runway in China by a whopping margin. We're talking 500 meters. Instead of a smooth landing, it was a splashy one as this aircraft ended up making an unexpected water landing on the Pacific Ocean. But here's the amazing part. All 47 people on board were lucky enough to walk away without serious injuries. And just like in a movie, local fishermen came to their rescue, navigating through treacherous waters to get everyone to safety. This harrowing tale is a testament to the bravery of both crew and passengers. Get ready for a shocking aviation accident. Back in 2020, Shenzhen Airlines Flight 9247 found itself trapped by Benjiwa Airport's notorious reputation. The flight was cruising smoothly, but things took a drastic turn during landing prep. Hazy visibility and stormy weather forced the plane into a holding pattern. But instead of making it to the runway, this small passenger jet carrying 99 people veered off course and crashed onto the mountainous terrain. It's even more stunning that the aircraft was punctured in 2 massive spots, holes almost 20 feet across. And if you thought that was bad enough, the pilot didn't report the incident for a full hour. Talk about a tense silence. Buckle up for some jaw-dropping aviation drama. In 2021, what was supposed to be a thrilling day at the Cocoa Beach Air Show in Florida turned into a heart-stopping free for all when a vintage World War II fighter jet made an emergency splashdown right in front of stunned beachgoers. This wasn't part of the air show's action-packed lineup, it was the real deal. The WWI-era fighter hit the water, leaving everyone on the shore and in the aircraft wondering if all on board were safe. Let's hope that this adrenaline-fueled incident became a fly-by-close call. Get ready for takeoff into an intense aviation near-miss. In a hair-raising incident at the Cocoa Beach Air Show in Florida, a vintage WWI fighter jet tore across the sky before suddenly sputtering out and making an emergency splashdown mere feet away from over 1,000 beachgoers. The action-packed drama didn't stop there. As the aircraft roared just above unsuspecting swimmers' heads, it was clear this wasn't part of the air show's planned aerial stunts. Miraculously, thanks to quick thinking and a spotter on site, everyone involved escaped unharmed. It seems the decades-old jet had hit a serious mechanical snag mid-flight. But fortunately for all, expert help was right there, ready to jump into action. Buckle up for one of the most astonishing aviation close calls on record. Northwest Airlines Flight 188. On this fateful day in 2009, the plane took off from sunny San Diego bound for Minneapolis, but instead of soaring safely towards its destination, it veered wildly off course. What went wrong? It's a jaw-dropping tale of muddled radio frequencies, crew miscommunication, non-stop chatter, and a shocking lack of attention to detail. The result was a heart-stopping sequence of events that had all the makings of a major catastrophe. But in an incredible twist, the plane somehow managed to land safely after over 150 miles off its intended route. Get ready for a jaw-dropping aviation blunder. Northwest Airlines Flight 188 took off from San Diego, but instead of heading to Minneapolis, it went seriously astray. Over 150 miles past the entire city and into Canada. The pilots had tuned out, literally, and started checking their laptops while completely ignoring their route. Air traffic control was on high alert, thinking the worst, and even had fighter jets ready for takeoff before the crew finally broke radio silence to report their unexpected location in Winnipeg, Manitoba. This shocking incident led to a major investigation, but what's truly bizarre is that the pilots' excuse. They claimed they were distracted by their laptops. Talk about a fateful click. And there you have it, folks. A